Tonight is the Perish of the Gur.
It's what?
One. The Perish of the Gur.
What does that mean?
I can't explain it to you now. The second week of Tefillah Shomer is the week of Gevurah, which is the mid of Yitzchak. Yitzchak Abinu is one of the most difficult of us to grasp. First of all, we know very little, other than that he starts off right away with the Akedah after his bris, and his struggles with Abimelech, and I'm sorry, they started with the bris and then the Akedah, and then struggled with Abimelech, and then struggles with Yaakov and Esau. But in between, it doesn't tell us, at least we don't see on the surface, a great deal of what we call personality traits. And that part of it is because Chazal tells us that once Yitzchak Avinu was on the Akedah, he was Kodesh Lashem, so that's why he could not leave Eretz Yisrael. He was a korban. He had already been Kodesh to put on his Mizrach, so he could not leave Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, his ability to influence outside world was very limited, and because the experience of the Akedah, at least the descriptions of the period experience of the Akedah, made him Kodesh. It's very difficult to relate directly to Kodesh because it's so severe, so intense. Today the week of Gevurah, which usually follows Pesach. We were in the world of Chesed, tremendous openness, and the iris of both of Yitzias Mitzrayim and the Kriyas Yamsuf, which are like such phenomenally open lights to our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We step into Yitzchak, and what we have Yitzchak at the core is the Akedah, and the brachas between Yaakov and Esau, the struggle between Yaakov and Esau, as however Yitzchak Avinu makes that happen, or happens in spite of him. The base depends on how you want to learn the Parshas. So, in order to understand a little bit better understanding, we look in Parsha Achrei Mos, and Achrei Mos is a fascinating Parsha, because the Parsha Achrei Mos starts off Achrei Mos Shnei Bnei Aaron because Bnei Hashem B'Yamosu. After Misa Bnei Aaron, then Hashem tells Moshe, okay, now tell Aaron. And it doesn't say when. It doesn't say when this whole sequence of activities of the power and the Zozel and the Keteris, and the Torah doesn't tell us when. Rashi tells us that at the very end, when it says at the very end of the description of the Avodah, it says it tells us you have to, it gives the whole thing that then it should be for Chayk, the 7th month, the 10th day of the month. That's when you have to fast. So we understand that the entire sequence of the korbanos that is described here is this description of the korbanos of Yom Kippur. But we didn't start off saying, Hashem tells Moshe, you have to know that on this is what Aaron has to do. We only know that at the very end of the description of everything that is done. So there's actually one day among the Rishonim, that says that it wasn't Badafka Yom Kippur. Yes, this is the avodah he must do in order to be able to do Yom Kippur. But there were times when that there were times of great stress for Klal Yisrael, and the Kohen Gadol would do this avodah even in the middle of the year. He could do the same avodah because the Torah doesn't say, it just says B'zos Yavar Al Kodesh.
He could also do these things.
That if he has to come into Kodesh, if it has to be at one point where he has to go to Mevatel the Xeris that Klal Yisrael is struggling with, or for this Ace Torah. So not only is it that he has that they asked the Urim Tumim what they should do, but the avodah of Kohen that this would be the Kohen Gadol could do this entire avodah even in the middle of the year if it was necessary.
Anytime during the year.
Anytime during the year, because the Torah doesn't tell us that this has to be done. It says after it tells us what it has to be done, it says then best for the Chodesh Tanus Nafshe Sechem. So we therefore understand and learn that all of this is the avodah Yom Kippur, and it's true. This is the avodah Yom Kippur. We say it. We go through on the Payat on Yom Kippur. We go through the whole description of the avodah, and it follows the Parsha. It follows the Parsha pretty precisely. All of the Torah Shabbat Peh and the Torah Shabbat Sab are synchronized here. Oh, I did not put on the visual. Okay. Had on sound. Okay. There. Sam, can you hear me? Okay. Can you see me too? And so, therefore, we start off with the Parsha with boom, avodas Yom Kippur. The intensity of the Kedusha Yom Kippur, of the entire of the Karbonos Yom Kippur and the Seirim and the Torah Zazel and the going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the Keteris and Ma'aser Keteris is the highest level with which a Jew could ever aspire to be. The Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's the type of stuff you say that every Jewish boy would love to be able to be at that madrega. Let alone it had to be a Kohen, it had to be the Kohen Gadol, and if the Kohen Gadol wasn't worthy of it, then he never made it past first base. There are 28 mitzvahs in this parsha, 2 mitzvahs essay, and 26 lavim. So you have the first couple is just that the Kohanim should not go into the Kodesh Stam. They have to go through the avodah Yom Kippur, and these are all there's a mitzvah that one mitzvah essay is the Kohen should do the avodah Yom Kippur. Mitzvah essay should do it, and the other mitzvah essay in this parsha is Kisei Adam. The rest of them are lavim. First of all, what they're not allowed to do on Yom Kippur, or that they're only allowed to do it on Yom Kippur, so it's allowed. They're not allowed to do it outside of Yom Kippur, and then starting from after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After 6 mitzvahs in this parsha, starts all the arayos. The parsha of the arayos. So on Yom Kippur, we learn for Shachos, we learn the first part of the parsha. And with Mincha, we sit there, they bring out the parsha of the arayos, all the forbidden relations. And that's, so the question is like, because then we end up in Shvi. And the question is, okay, we understand why Shachris, we're going to learn Parsha of the Avodas HaKohen Gadol. It makes sense what we would say. But why do we come Mincha? Why do we go into the Parsha Arayos? So ostensibly, this Rambam HaKadoshim say that the reason why you go to Parsha Arayos, that the person since Yom Kippur is done to Tshuva, so sometimes people have to be reminded of their affairs. So, if you happen to be any one of these Averas, do Tshuva now. We'll still Yom Kippur. But that's that's written in this one, that that's one of the reasons. However, that it needs to have. It says, how is this? What's the relevance to Yom Kippur? Okay. So the tshuva could be a lot of different parshas. It could have been to talk about tshuva. A lot of other places. Mitzvah says Shonech mitzvah eschem hayom. That's all in the midst of tshuva. Could blame that factor too. So to be able to have a better, at least a deeper insight, and to understand the midas hagvura. If we just talk about the 7 midas of chesed and gevura, chesed is the first of the 7 midas that describe what we call our relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't have a midas, so it's the description of our relationship between ourselves and Kodesh Baruch Hu, so that we can grasp that which is beyond comprehension. So chesed is the ability to understand that Hashem has filled the world with the closeness that we could discover HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything in our world, and we can do it with simcha. It could be bright. We see the expansiveness of chesed never stops. Chesed is not even really good English word. Kindness, goodness. But the chesed of Hashem is infinite. And so that the Pesach and Yetzias Mitzrayim is all in the midah of chesed is because those are the oris that made it possible for Klal Yisrael to be lifted out of the Tumas Mitzrayim, even if they weren't worthy of it. Because the Yisrael weren't really worthy for the Gula. We know because which mitzvahs were the mitzvahs that which thing that the Klal Yisrael was redeemed for, because of first of all, Pesach Mila, and also Shleishim L'Rusham. They didn't change their names. They didn't change their clothing. They didn't change their language. They didn't. They didn't allow the corruption of Mitzrayim into their homes. But other than that, because I'll tell us, by the Yam Suf, so Hashem told the Yam Suf to drown the Mitzrayim, and Hashem and the Yam answered, "Okay, which ones? Halol, halol. They both look like Mitzrayim to me." The Klal Yisrael was just a teeny drop different than the Mitzrayim. Right? And so therefore the Chazal tell us that the only way that it was possible for Hashem to lift Klal Yisrael was with tremendous chesed. Chesed doesn't require that you deserve it. Gvura, on the other hand, which is translated as strength, is really constriction, limiting the chesed of Hashem. Limiting the chesed of Hashem makes it possible for us to appreciate that which we have, that we can accomplish in our closeness to Hashem. So Gvura gives us the first step of Avodah, that we start with Avodah. Do you deserve it? You don't deserve it. So the reality of Mishpah. And the world was created. Gracious brother came and says, "Shemayim v'sa'aretz." Because I'll tell us the word Hashem created, the one that created the world with midas hadin. With Gvura, Hashem wanted to create the world with the midah of justice. Should be precise. For every action, there's a cause and effect, and that's the midah of Gvura, midas hamishpat. Hashem saw the world won't survive. So Hashem added midas harachamim so that we would be able to survive. Tzrayim HaKadosh may have a field day with this, because Hashem didn't know. So the Mordecai goes through a fairly lengthy description of that in order for us to be able to appreciate chesed, you'd have to have din first. You'd have to have gvura first. The first Hashem would create, if you want to call the vessel, and with which we could receive it, and then Hashem pours in the chesed. If we didn't have the keli, if we didn't have the vessel to contain it, so then the chesed would simply continue. There'd be never schar v'einish. There'd be no way to ever have bechira. Chesed doesn't require that we earn it. We deserve it. So it's chesed it's not for schar v'einish. Schar v'einish starts from the midah of gevura. So Avraham Avinu was all chesed, And Yitzchak is Gevurah. Yitzchak represents the constraint. Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu had, at least we know they had some Talmidim, right? They had the Gerim. Yitzchak, we don't see they did with the Gerim. He didn't, he didn't. He had one wife. Yitzchak and Yaakov and Esav. Very constrained life. He finally had to do to open up the wells that his father had dug. So where's the bond? Where's the bond take place? So Yaakov said the bond took place as they were walking up to the Akedah. Because Hashem told Abraham, bring an oila. And Abraham understood that meant a carbon oila, but never said that. Hashem said, elevate him. So Abraham Avinu wanted to understood that oil meant a carbon. That meant that he would have to bring Yitzchak as a carbon on the Mizbeach. What changed? When did it change? What? So Hashem changed. Hashem said, "No, Abraham Avinu, I was just kidding." Yeah. No, I didn't really mean to tell you this stuff to them. So the Ari HaKodesh says it took place when they were walking up to Har Moriah. The Abraham Avinu, Yitzchak turns to Abraham Avinu, says, "V'yam Yitzchak el Abraham, v'yam Yitzchak Avi, v'yam Hineni." He says, "Here's the fire and here's the wood. Where is the cell? Where's the carbon? Where's the animal for the oil?" And Abraham answers, "V'yam Abraham, l'kim yerla asal ben loyla b'nei." And there's a pause there. We're bringing for the oila, my son. The next words are v'yelchu shneim yachdav. They walked together. Because Yitzchak at that point understood that the change has to take place, so that Avram's chesed and Yitzchak's work would be able to work join together. So the tachlis of the Akedah, the tzibur, took place by Yechlu Shneim Yachdav. When they both walked together. So then, in order for us to receive and handle the kedusha of Yom Kippur, the Torah has to give us the limitations. It's to give us the keli. It tells us what separates Klal Yisrael from the Mitzrayim. What Mitzrayim was Tufizim. They were corrupted, morally corrupt. And the Torah says you have to be careful not to lose sight of the kedusha of Klal Yisrael. That kedusha of Klal Yisrael has very strict limitations. Don't overstep these boundaries. If you overstep these boundaries, you won't be able to receive the chesed. That's the conditions to be able to have Yom Kippur to be mechaper. It means that Klal Yisrael has to be able to recognize the boundaries that separate us between us and the nations of the world, which is one of the reasons why we say Aleinu at the end of davening. Because we say Aleinu Shabech Aleinu Kol Hasetzidul Yosef Reishis Shaloi Sam Chalkeinu Ka'am V'Gar Aleinu K'Chol Hamayim, that Hashem didn't make us like them. He didn't give us our lot, our share, per portion, like the rest of them. Because there, what they was worshiping is empty. Therefore, we're able to receive because we're not like them. We're able to receive the kedusha that allows us to step into the world. That's why Aleinu was the last step of at least the Sfard. It's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. It's the step of awareness that we're going from the kedusha of tefillah, we're about to go into the world. You have to know the difference between ourselves and the world around us.
I would understand why Aleinu was specifically originally from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
That's why Aleinu is in the middle of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
It was originally before it was. I think the rest of that wasn't originally Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur because that's the whole point of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Oh no,
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
Either way, it's two sides of the same coin. So therefore, the boundaries when we take a look at the boundaries, we see that that's that makes it possible for Klal Yisrael to be different than the nations of the world. So I understand why the Torah ultimately ends up the end of the Parsha, the last of Arias that the Torah gives us, which begins with Shvi, same gender relationships, and the different with men and animals. Don't make yourself dumb because that's what those nations that I'm going to drive you away. That's what that's where they get corrupted. But that's why they became tummy. That's why the land vomited them out. It's sort of a powerful lashon. As we ever saw him. The last pasuk of Achrei, which Martin is Mishmarti, the Vilta says, and it says that it ends up, the says, I will hold Klal Yisrael accountable for every time that there's corruption, moral corruption in the world. It's up to Klal Yisrael. And if Klal Yisrael did not teach the world or not be able to maintain that level of kedusha, then Klal Yisrael goes through the difficulties of being, we would say, thrown from one place in the world to the next place in the world. Soki Ara says something. Hashem said the word the Eretz Yisrael cannot tolerate. So we have, in our own short experience, saw what happens when corruption takes place in Klal Yisrael. When on Simchas Torah and on Shabbos that they produce corruption of moral values by that concert. So we understand that the impact changed, that corruption changed the entirety of all of the plans that they had planned for attacking Eretz Yisrael. Our enemies saw we were weak, we were vulnerable, and their intensity of their moral boundaries, but immediately attack, leave Klal Yisrael vulnerable for being attacked, because there it says, Eretz Yisrael will not tolerate. The exact opposite is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, where we're mechaper first, Klal Yisrael is mechaper first the Kippur of the bite of the Kohen. It's a mechaper for himself, for Beis Aaron, and for all of Klal Yisrael. And then the Gemara tells us why is Klal Yisrael bringing Din B'Chesron Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? It says because Hashem was the king. When the king is held accountable, he steps in first and says, "I'm responsible for my people." Therefore, Klal Yisrael steps in for Kabbalah before all the rest of the nations of the world. Right? This Gemara. Rosh Hashanah Gemara in Yuma. That's Rosh Hashanah. The Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur are Klal Yisrael stepping forward to show that we're accountable for whatever happens in the world. So when the world wants to say everything is our fault, they're right. When we see destruction and conflict in the world, it's only because Klal Yisrael has that vulnerability that allows that weakness to destroy both Klal Yisrael or put at least Klal Yisrael at the threat of being destroyed, which is, by the way, we go back to when Megillah Esther. Klal Yisrael was chayav clear because they were broke down the boundaries. The Eden of Klal Yisrael had become assimilated, intermarried. When Ezra, right after when Mordecai, after the Maaseh, when Mordecai and Esther, Ezra Sefer wants to send Klal Yisrael back to Eretz Yisrael, the first thing he had to do before he could do it was to find out who's still a Jew that's Torah. I mean, who's a Jew whose lineage is not been compromised. And Nosen, and Moms, etc., because with those who were really not Jewish, there was a Sarah Madregas of lineage were established by Ezra so that he could bring those to be Jews to Eretz Yisrael who could at least know, okay, we at least know we have some real Jews whose lineage has not been corrupted. So you see that how far Klal Yisrael had gotten to the point that the Gezer would be Lahar Gil Ashmer, the Abed Kol Yehuda. In those 70 years of Golus Bavel, Klal Yisrael had tremendous Yerida. We could understand it sociologically. There's the base of Mikdash, everything that they thought was holy was destroyed. Sanhedrin was destroyed. The kings were enslaved. The Nevi'im were tossed around and driven as part of Klal Yisrael's Golus. I had a couple of Ezra and Nehemiah. A couple of Nevi'im left. They were left to manage to help us get a little back on track in Eretz Yisrael. But it was a small percentage of Klal Yisrael that went back to Eretz Yisrael. Out of I know what the population of Klal Yisrael in Babel, but Klal Yisrael had prospered. Nafal Pachal Yehudim Aleim that all the nations of the world were now afraid of Klal Yisrael. How many went back? 45,000 Jews followed us back to Eretz Yisrael. Eventually, more came. So we recognize that this balance between the Kedusha of Yom Kippur and the boundaries of the Parsha Arayos have to go together. They have to go together because one is the Chesed, one is the closeness so we can get to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and here's how it gets lost. And the land will not vomit you out if you corrupt it, like it vomited out the nations that were there before you. These corruptions of behavior, the cause that brings chorus, so keep the boundaries. So that's the parallel between Yom Kippur and the Parsha Rayos, and that's the reason why we read the Parsha Rayos on Yom Kippur from Mincha, so that we said, okay, we reached a very high level. We went through. We put ourselves like the Kohen Gadol, watching the Kohen Gadol go into the base into Kodesh HaKadoshim. And then the next day said, okay, now you want to hold on to that Kedusha. Be careful on your behavior and moral immorality. So I said, and it pointed out that, and once it gets pointed out, it's interesting because I found it in the Eitzah Tfilos on the Avodah Yom Kippur. It says, we say three times. Everybody standing here with the Azar. All you shame as a shame. Kohen Gadol. They heard the shame coming out from the mouth of the Kohen Gadol. So he was medayik, and he says it doesn't say. It's the that the shame of Mafarish cannot be said. It's not possible to say it. So the Kohen Gadol has to be ready to say that which cannot be said naturally. So when the Yosef Kohen Gadol, it came out, he opened up his mouth, the Shem Hashem came out of the mouth of the Kohen Gadol. He couldn't pronounce it. It have to come out. He says that's why the last 100 years of the Bayis Sheni, everything Kohen Gadol walked into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and either died immediately or had died right afterwards, but they tied a rope around his waist to pull him out. Because he would open his mouth and the Shem HaKodesh would come out. If the vessel of the Kohen Gadol wasn't worthy of it, it would shatter it. Right? The neshama couldn't. At that point, the neshama couldn't handle the kedusha. So therefore, the Kohen Gadol would die immediately not because he didn't say it, because he opened up his mouth. He was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. As Hashem Yosef would come out of him. So if the vessel couldn't handle it, it will collapse. So in the beginning of Parsha Achrei, when the very first pasuk, so there is the Archaim Kodesh is very lengthy on the descriptions of what caused the death of the sons of Aaron. Because he said the Gemara gives us several reasons. One's that they drink wine. One was that they were not married. They didn't have children. They were married halacha l'fnei Rambam, that they passed in one halacha by bringing fire on the mizrach without asking Moshe Rabbeinu for it. He said each one by themselves would not have caused them to die, or that they were by Hakabal Satar. They looked at the Kisar cover. Says all the sense that if the keli got so high, the neshama got so high, so the keli shattered. That was covers on Pnei Hashem. So if you take a look, it's a piece with which you can't even try and translate it. You look at the Archaim HaKodesh. Yomar. Hashem described to Moshe what caused them to die. That they came close to Hashem. They got so close to this high light. Because they're yearning to be close to Kedusha. And because they got so close, that's why they died. That's the description of Misa Sadikim. They die with a kiss. That's because the neshama gets so close that it only takes that contact with the Shechina, and the neshama leaves. So they died because the Aaron died, just like all the tzaddikim died. But the difference between what they did versus what normally happens to tzaddikim, tzaddikim on the shika miskareves lahem. That tzaddikim, when they're ready, when Hashem wants to take them in this world, the Shechina comes close to them. Beheim, the sky vula, they brought themselves close to the Shechina. That's what's called B'nei Hashem. But Yamusu, but that's Yamusu, Ramaz, Haflos, Chivas HaTzadikim. You see the yearning, the closeness, the love that these tzaddikim had. They felt that they were going. The neshama was leaving them. They felt that they were dying. Right? That they could not hold back from that closeness, the sweetness, the love of that kiss, of that closeness. Until the neshama left them. So try and understand this, and then you can't go any further than this because the head of the division said that the Ruach Chaim HaKodesh had at least neshama 10 times in the next piece of Torah. So if you ever want to try and figure out a puzzle, there's 15 times the word seichel, one after the other. I don't even try and translate it. By dealing is Bainain, I will let you know this a little bit later on the feast. But Timus Haskolas Hamuskal Shaskolas Haskal Taska Baskolas Haskal Haskolas Haskal Shamuskal Haskal Muslim Hasechel Shayaskal Bahasatsma Vilasmi Yaskal Shamuskal Muskal Muskal built in Muskal Hasechel Iskil Maskil and Bichud.
It's counting.
Don't even try. Don't even try.
Don't even do it.
It's one of the great puzzles you get. Yeah, you know Hebrew, right? You got to Rabbi, you know Hebrew really well? Could you tell me Pshat in this?
Right.
Tomorrow and Shiur, I'm going to show this to the Rabbi. Next week's read it straight.
Yeah. It's like you can't. It's like yeah, and you can't do it because he says he completes after that. Just to tell you how far he goes with this. Beside neshama nishmasai, that's the secret of the neshamas and neshama. For us, with the count, they reached the crown of the king. In the kiss of COVID. So there's the Parsha tells us that the capacity of Klal Yisrael to reach the loftiest madrigas is Mitzvah Bnei Aaron, the Aved of Yom Kippur, the Aved of Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, and the other side is the boundaries that have to be kept. We violate the boundaries, then we lose the kedusha.
That also explains why you do the HaRav, Parsha HaRav, but Mincha, that's
Yeah, that's right. Because they're connected. You can't have one without the other. And that differentiates. And we see it in the world around us. We see it both in what happened in the Eretz Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, and the struggle even in Eretz Yisrael. All of a sudden, right? They wake up. The Supreme Court says, "Oh, we got to start shipping with Bnei Torah." Boom, 300 missiles. They didn't get the message. Don't happen with Torah.
We're going to save money by cutting budgets to Torah.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll spend 20 times that amount.
No, it's not it was an impossibility.
Yeah.
It was an impossibility. It was Nissim. It was the latest nes that was described by one of the they described that one of the things that the Klal Yisrael, the Eretz Yisrael had difficulty with was they tried to coordinate in the past anti-missile protection between them and the Saudis, but the Saudis had a different radar system, so they weren't able to get the two radar systems to integrate. Except for that night, boom, the computers matched, and the radar system was all coordinated, and boom, 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 boom. Right? All of a sudden, right? So we could explain everything, but there's no way for it to answer. The intenseness of the Nisim, because Roy has to Klal Yisrael, and a warning to Klal Yisrael: don't. It's not something that you can describe as being explained by human effort.
No,
No. Derech Hashem doesn't work, doesn't answer all this. So this is that's why Parsha Achrei comes now after Pesach. It can sometimes come up before, but usually it's come Achrei Kedoshim, usually either together or separately after Pesach. To tell us that you went through the experience of the Chesed of Hashem. Now look at the Gvur, look at the boundaries that need to be kept. And therefore, this takes us in. When that happens, then by the Keded Yitzchak and Abraham that they're walking together. That's the oneness that Klal Yisrael needs to have, where the Chesed of the goodness of Klal Yisrael matched only by the limitation of the Gvur of the Keli that needs to hold that Chesed. And B'zech the Baruch Hu changes Chesed upon us, so we'll be able to see the Gula Kroiva, complete Chesed, take us out of this Golos, and we'll be able to stand on the Eretz Yisrael. We'll be able to see the Aved of Kohen Gadol.
Bye.